Welcome back to Charis English session with me. Today we are going to talk about persuasive writing. As we know that one of the most important skills to survive the 21st century is communication. We are all engaged in daily communication, either orally or written form. People are trying to convince others to give information, to explain something. So they have so many things they can do with communication. Persuasive writing basically is trying to get people around to our perspective so that they can believe in the truth of whatever we are saying to them. So it's very important that we know the subject very well before we can give them information or we try to explain them something that we think is very important. So first thing first, okay, here are the steps if you want to write a persuasive essay or you want to come up with persuasive writing. So the first step is you need to select your subject, and then you need to establish what it is by clarifying or defining your claims. In order to know exactly what you are trying to say, your main argument, you need to do a little research so that you can provide a very sound basis and convincing reasons and evidence concerning the argument that you are trying to give them. For example, if you are interested in the idea of the inequality between the rich and the poor, you can start by giving the introduction, such as a double blow of health crisis and severe economic downturn deeply impacts the life of the people globally due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So in the midst of such distressing situation, inequality worsens as the gap of wealth and income inequality is much wider apart between the rich and the poor. After you presented your claim or your main argument, you can proceed on to the second step, which is bringing in the opposite viewpoint in order to reveal the gap between arguments. In such a way, it's going to provide a kind of a contradiction, which is worth noticing or considering. For example, it is saddening that while millions of people struggle financially to meet their daily needs and even face lots of jobs, the rich are getting richer. You need to elaborate further or explain further the opposite viewpoint by giving examples, such as you are providing the examples of the people, the rich people who has gained much wealth while they are failing to provide the benefits to their workers. This is going to give a paradox which needs to receive greater attention. By giving the example, you are trying to point out that many people lead uncovered lives. They are faced with inevitable situations where they need to struggle on financially, economically, and which in contrast to the comfort of the rich people enjoys because they make such a gains during the pandemic. We are coming to the third step, which is you need to link back to the main argument by calling the attention of the readers to the importance of considering your claim. For example, it is for us to decide what to do about this trying time. The suffering of people needs immediate attention. If we can have a policy made on their behalf that prevents the rich from getting richer and the poor from getting poorer, in such a way that the well-being of the poor is improved. The last step will be concluding the writing by tying together the threads of argument, or you can put in a word of suggestion, or you are trying to call on the people to take an action. For example, it is time for the government and the business owners to consider and care for the interests of the working class who are exposed to greater difficulties than ever during this pandemic. So here is the recap. To begin with, you need to select your subject and then know it really well. And then you need to clearly define your claim and describe your argument well. Then you can bring in the opposite viewpoint to reveal the gap between arguments. In such a way, you can create a contradiction that leads to complication. And then you can elaborate further by giving example to point out the strength and the weaknesses of both arguments. And then it's going to direct the audience or the readers to the importance of each argument for them to consider. And then finally, you can conclude by tying together the threads of arguments by putting in a word of suggestion. You can call on the readers to take certain or real action. And that's it. Yeah, those are very important steps if you want to write a persuasive essay or you want to come up with persuasive writing. Thank you very much.